Part 24. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 237. Brother Ma's double axe kept sweeping down, and the strong wind wave after wave seemed chaotic, but it cut Pu Yao Yao's moving space just right. This is true roughness and fineness. Pu Yao Yao is a cat demon and is very fast. However, facing Brother Ma's big axe offensive, it is difficult for her to use her agility. She looks very passive and embarrassed. She even has many scars on her body. The blood has soaked into his clothes. Even if Brother Ma's axe did not hit Pu Yao Yao directly, the strong energy emitted when the axe was swung should not be underestimated. Pu Yao Yao's situation was indeed critical. If Wang Lezang hadn't stunned and disturbed Brother Ma from time to time, causing Brother Ma to make mistakes every time he weaved the cage to prepare for the final blow, Pu Yao Yao might have become a dead soul under the axe, but even if with the help of Wang Lezang, it is difficult for Pu Yao Yao to hold on for long. The gap in strength is so obvious. In fact, if Su Bai hadn't smashed Jiangsu's head with the butt of his gun, and Su Qing and Frozen Man were involved, the duel might have been over. With Su Qing and Frozen Man joining in, Pu Yao Yao wouldn't have been able to do it 7 times in a row. If you can't hold on for a second, you will die. Fen Yelong, damn it, are you okay or not? Pu Yao Yao shouted in her heart. There was no response from Fen Yelong. At this moment, Xiao Ma here also discovered Jiangsu's death. He turned around and glanced, and then shouted angrily. The muscles in his body tensed instantly, and the blood in his body swelled, showing a violent movement. The waves were swung more fiercely, the wind was blowing, and the ground was constantly being swept away by the strong wind, creating ravines one after another. Pu Yao Yao was suppressed to the point of almost collapse. The Frozen Man looked at Su Qing, who turned into an ice sculpture with Su Bai, and subconsciously wanted to kill Su Bai. However, Su Bai and Su Qing were frozen together. The Frozen Man knew that if he took action against Su Bai, Su Qing would also be affected. He hesitated for a moment, looked at the ice sculpture formed by the two people hatefully, turned back, spread his hands, and blood continued to flow from the corners of his mouth, but the frozen breath was constantly brewing. Help the little one first. Brother Ma will deal with that Catwoman first. As the surrounding temperature gets lower and lower, Pu Yao Yao's heart becomes more and more desperate. Wang Lezang, who is outside the wall of the fertilizer factory, is already pale, his mental energy is overdrawn, and his body is crumbling. At this moment, Fen Yelong let out a low shout. The stars move according to the law, start the formation. Fen Yelong's formation was finally set up, and he used his own essence and blood as the source to activate it. The formation instantly opened, and a dark cloud appeared above it. This dark cloud came out of nowhere, and was pulled out purely by the power of the formation. Yes, it's like driving a duck to the shelf. If this formation is deployed in a thunderstorm, the power will be very terrifying, but it can easily cause fire, because even the caster has a hard time controlling this formation in a thunderstorm. At this time, you seem thin, there is insufficient water vapor in the air, so the power of the magic circle will be weakened, but it is more convenient for Fen Yelong to control. After all, he does not want to die with the enemy, nor does he want to smash his teammates and the enemy together. Groups of people gathered around bonfires and facades. Some of them seemed a little anxious, and some seemed relatively comfortable. The demolition area was deserted, and this group of people was obviously here to prepare for branch lines. Audience for the task. After the team battle started over there, rolling energy fluctuations continued to pass over. Many people in the team subconsciously stood up and looked over there, but no one went there to prepare to join in, because from the energy fluctuations of the battle, it can also estimate the strength level of the two warring parties. It is not the type that can be easily picked up. At the very least, you can wait until the battle is over and both sides will suffer losses before trying anything else. After Fen Yelong's formation was activated, thunder also sounded, and the scene became even more grand. A middle-aged man wearing a Taoist robe had a solemn look on his face. He was an expert and could sense the formation more clearly than others. A power. A woman with red hair walked over from her team at this time. She was the captain of her team, and the Taoist priest was also the captain of his team. The two teams actually met in the subway on the way here, but everyone they maintained a tacit understanding and lived in peace, because the difference in strength between the two teams was not big. If they fought hard, both sides would lose. Not every team member was as crazy as those in Subai's team, who were afraid of the world being in chaos and dared to attack their opponents. Taoist Master Zigzhu, is there a fight over there? The woman asked. There were many bumps on her face was a bit ugly, her red hair was like hay, and her whole body looked like she had been hollowed out by taking too many drugs. But no one dares to look down on her, because since she can get into this position and be the captain of a team, it will definitely not be that simple. The way she is now, it should be that practicing some kind of skill has consumed her lifespan and energy. The performance is right. Don't you know it yourself? Taoist Master Zigzhu said in a deep voice. Two very strong teams are fighting hard. They fought hard for theirs, just so we can do the mission first to gain points. The woman smiled. Your team dares to be the first to go up? Taoist Master Zigzhu asked with a bit of ridicule. Wang Lezang, how much energy you still have, give it to that big man. Yao Yao, I'm going to give that big man a blow, and you're going to kill him back. Control your rhythm and get ready to start. Fen Yelong's voice was transmitted to the minds of Pu Yao Yao and Wang Lezang through the spiritual chain. Pu Yao Yao gritted her teeth and let out a sharp meow. Wang Lezang swallowed all the poisons and medicines in one go, and his body became almost as white as a piece of paper. In the sky, two bolts of lightning are brewing rapidly and may fall at any time. Of course, Brother Ma also discovered the posture of the formation, and he noticed that there was a thunderbolt hovering above his head, and it was about to fall. Brother Ma suddenly landed on the ground with his feet, then raised his axe upward, ready to hit thunder. At this time, Wang Lezang's last blow directly penetrated into Brother Ma's mind. Brother Ma's body shook, and a gap appeared in the body protecting qi around him. Pu Yao Yao's figure was like lightning, and she was suppressed. After so long, he finally started his first counter-attack, directly piercing through Brother Ma's body protecting energy, and pierced Brother Ma's chest with his 10 fingers. Boom! The first thunderbolt fell. However, a surprising scene occurred. The thunder did not fall on Brother Ma, but on the frozen man who was preparing to release the power of ice. For this result, the frozen man did not expect it at all, because he knew very well that the opponent's first target should be Brother Ma, not himself. The frozen power is still gathering around the frozen man, but the thunder directly hits his body and falls from the Tianling cap. It does not cause an explosion, but directly kills the frozen man. The frozen man's body and even his clothes were not damaged at all, but he fell backwards to the ground, completely lifeless, and died immediately. Fen Yelong, what are you doing? Wang Lezang roared. Your grandma, Fen Yat. Before Pu Yao Yao could finish yelling from the bottom of her heart, Brother Ma's axe had already fallen. Pu Yao Yao was almost close to Brother Ma and had no time to escape. Puff! Pu Yao Yao's head was directly chopped off. The headless body was still resting on Brother Ma's huge body. The flying head landed on the ground with an expression full of disbelief. The second thunderbolt fell directly at this time, but it was not aimed at Brother Ma, but fell on Wang Lezang, who had been standing outside the fertilizer factory to provide support and help. Wang Lezang, who had already been overdrawn, could not block. The thunder entered his body, destroying his soul, his consciousness and his spirit, leaving only his cold body, which fell heavily to the ground. Two thunderbolts fell, and the dark clouds in the sky suddenly disappeared. Xiao Ma's chest was torn open by Pu Yao Yao with two horrific wounds, and the bones were visible. He was half kneeling on the ground, with two axes still in his hands, breathing heavily, but he was still there. Laughing, and at the same time shouting with a sense of joy. When a gravity formation came out, I knew it was you. It's normal that they don't know you, because you are indeed not at our level of strength, but a formation master cannot be measured by an accurate strength index. Of Fen Yelong, who was a little haggard, walked in while holding onto the wall. Looking at Brother Ma's embarrassment, he also smiled. It's so good now. These people are all very powerful, and they naturally have a lot of magic weapons. The two of us dividing their things equally is definitely many times more cost-effective than earning story points in this story world. You've always been such a sinister person. Don't you believe that I chopped you with an axe? There are two of us, you are the main battler and I am the assistant. It shouldn't be difficult to survive in this story world and complete the mission. But if we are alone, no matter how strong we are, it will be difficult to compete with those small teams. Everyone else is dead, and if we don't want to be alone, we can cooperate in a proper manner, divide the spoils in a proper way, and make a fortune in a proper way. Fen Yelong pointed at the ice sculpture formed by the two people and said, "Go and see if those two guys are dead. The two guns on that vampire are very valuable. I'm jealous of them. Haha, I've discovered it before. Let's take one each." Sure, Fen Yelong agreed happily. I want that woman's dagger and clothes and equipment. You can't fit them anyway. I'm small. If I can wear them, I can get more agility points to save my life. Okay, I don't need an assassin's equipment. Brother Ma walked up to the ice sculpture, put his palm on the ice sculpture, felt it, and said with a smile, "After death, there is no fluctuation in life. First, pick off the things on other people's bodies and divide them equally, and then smash this ice lump." After saying that, Brother Ma turned around and walked to Frozen Man to fumble for the magic weapon, while Fen Yelong went to get something from Catwoman. At this moment, in a place that neither of them noticed at all, the ice layer between Yu Subai and Su Cheng, a crack appeared quietly. Terror broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 238. In horror broadcasts, trust between people is actually a very luxurious thing. Here, most people only have exchanges of interests, and interests sometimes seem a bit naked, which makes people who are accustomed to being born, raised, and live in the real world relying on a complete social system very uncomfortable. Unable to adapt. I always feel that this matter should not be like this. In fact, in the world of the story, Subai seems to have never encountered true trust. There was very little in the past, and in the future, it will actually be even less, because the longer people live later, the more accustomed they are to this kind of trust. This law of the supremacy of interests is regarded as one's code of conduct, and there are certainly people who have beautiful illusions, but it is difficult to survive to the end. The cracks on the ice began to become more and more dense, but they were still silent. Neither Xiao Ma Ji nor Fen Yelong, who were groping for things on the body, noticed this. This was a very strange scene. A picture that makes people feel very inconsistent. However, silence cannot last forever. Furthermore, neither Fen Yelong nor Xiao Ma are fools. They can directly turn against each other from their respective teams without dialogue and communication, just by relying on their feelings. If such a person is a fool, then what are the dead Frozen Man, the dead Wang Lizang, the dead Jiangsu and the dead Catwoman? Finally, at the same moment, Xiao Ma and Fen Yelong, who were groping for something, were stunned together. They stood up straight together, and then almost together, they looked back behind them. They still felt it. Click. The ice is broken. Broken to pieces. Su Qing's body fell to the ground. His whole body was blue and lifeless. He fell to the ground stiffly and motionless. Subai, on the other hand, was still standing. He groaned in pain and slowly squatted down, hugging his body tightly and curling up. It was obviously cold, very cold, very cold, so cold. His soul was trembling, and his whole body was almost unable to control himself. Fen Yelong and Brother Ma looked at each other for a moment, and then Brother Ma showed a smile, slowly walked towards Subai and said, "Fen Yelong, have you ever thought that if you had struck me first and then Chuck, the frozen man, with that thunderbolt, maybe the team you were in before would have really created a miracle, a weak team, the miracle of completely defeating our so-called strong team? Because this vampire actually killed two of us directly." Brother Ma walked very slowly. He thought that Subai was dead, but it turned out that Subai was not dead. He was careless. He realized that he had made the same mistake that Su Qing had made when she first met Subai. This vampire's ability to survive is truly amazing. Fen Yelong snorted in a nasal voice, "How much can I share in that case? How much can I share now?" "That's right, your choice is actually very wise," Xiao Ma said as he approached Subai. His eyes were fixed on Subai. It seemed that he was still chatting casually with Fen Yelong, but he has long been in a state of full alert. In fact, the injuries on Brother Ma's body are also very serious, especially the wound on his chest that was scratched by Catwoman, but he can continue to hold on because his physique is indeed amazing and his capital is sufficient. Subai slowly raised his head, with frost on his eyebrows, like a dying old man, with only one breath left. However, Subai still almost twisted his body and struggled to raise his arms, trying to lift the gun. He. Brother Ma swung the axe and swept it over. Although he was still a short distance away from Subai, the strong wind on the axe was able to expand the distance and hit Subai directly. Subai's movements at this time were very slow and no longer as sharp as before. The strong wind swept over him. Even though Xiao Ma was now a little weak due to his own injuries, this strong wind still cannot be underestimated. And swept Subai away. The two Hellfire shotguns also fell to the ground, and Subai fell further away. From Subai's shoulder to his crotch, a very long and terrifying scar appeared. If the whole person were a little more fragile, it would have been split in half by now. "Look, both of your guns have fallen off. Without these two guns, you are just a poor vampire. Oh no, 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 you are still a zombie like a bastard." There was a gloomy look on Brother Ma's face, and a stinging pain suddenly came from his chest. The two claws that Catwoman had put on her body before she died seemed to be mixed with some strange toxins, although it was not its fatal, but it also makes me a little troublesome. "Forget it, let's kill this guy first and find a place to heal. I'm too lazy to do the side task." The total harvest here is estimated to be 2,000 to 3,000 story points. Those small mission rewards are not the main missions, so you really don't need to care about them. Fen Yelong just took out a jade pendant from Catwoman. The jade pendant had clear patterns and the pattern of a wild cat. It was lifelike. When he touched it in his hand, a warm feeling spread from his palm to his limbs, which was very comfortable. I asked why this Catwoman has been practicing the Demon Clan skills, but her body is still so healthy and her energy and blood are so full. There is such a good thing. With it nourishing my body, I don't have to worry about using formations in the future. The damage caused by the law to one's own body. Immediately, Fen Yelong turned his head and looked at Brother Ma, frowned, and asked, "Why hasn't it been solved yet? Do you want me to arrange a formation to help you? I'm almost overdrafted now. Why are you urging me to hang myself in a hurry?" Brother Ma cursed, quickened his pace, and started sprinting. He put an axe on his chest for defense, and raised an axe to give Subai the final blow and send Subai on his way. At this time, Brother Ma was still very cautious. He was worried that Subai had any backup plans, because this vampire seemed to be weak, especially without the two Hellfire shotguns. It looked more like he had been pulled out. A tiger with teeth, but Xiao Ma still didn't dare to be careless. He always felt a strange feeling inside. In fact, Subai really had no choice. He couldn't even sit up. He could only lie on the ground silently, raising his head as slightly as possible, watching Xiao Ma rush towards him, feeling the ground move with him. The vibration caused by Xiao Ma's running. "I have last words to say," Subai said softly. "Let's talk to the King of Hell." Brother Ma has already arrived in front of Subai, and the axe has condensed Gangqi. He intends to chop Subai to pieces and explode it, leaving no intact piece of meat for Subai. At this moment, Fen Yelong's eyes suddenly jumped as he was still holding the jade pendant and feeling the wonderful feeling. Then he saw a scene that made him unexpected. He opened his mouth and wanted to remind him, but found that it was too late, because blood has come. Xiao Ma's body stood in front of Subai, maintaining the posture of raising the axe, but motionless. The axe did not come down, and he could not take another step forward. Behind him, a woman's arm hooked on his neck. At the same time, a black dagger stabbed into the back of Brother Ma's neck very smoothly. Brother Ma's whole body trembled, his face suddenly turned black, and he couldn't even look back. Just standing there, losing all vitality. This dagger belonged to Subai. Subai brought it out from the demon cave. It was originally a dagger used by the fox demon to grind his teeth. It was extremely sharp and highly poisonous. Su Qing gently stroked Brother Ma's beard, and with a touch of affection, blew on Brother Ma's earlobe. When it comes to pretending to be dead, vampires really don't rank high. It should be our assassin's best skill. Moreover, since we have been together for the past few days, every night when you rest, I will subconsciously knead the back of your neck. I know that this is your cover and your weakest point. In fact, I never thought that the enemy's dagger will be stabbed into you here. I really didn't expect this scene. Su Qing fell from Xiao Ma Ji's body, and Xiao Ma Ji's body also fell down. Fen Yelong had a look of horror on his face and hurriedly backed away. Su Qing glanced at Brother Ma, and then her figure disappeared on the spot. Subai struggled to crawl forward. He didn't climb very far. Fortunately, he didn't need to climb far, because Brother Xiao Ma's huge body was right next to him. He looked at Brother Xiao Ma and smiled. "I asked you to say your last words before, but you didn't say them. Now, there is no chance to say it. Forget it, tell the King of Hell." After saying that, Subai showed two fangs and stabbed directly into Brother Ma's body. The toxin of the dagger, diluted with Brother Ma's blood, would have some impact on Subai, but it would not be fatal. Moreover, Subai was now. It is true that blood is needed, especially the blood of the strong, which is more delicious and better for his current injury. After a quarter of an hour, Subai breathed a long sigh of relief and staggered up. Brother Ma had become a mummy, but Subai's face also showed a green color. It was obvious that the remaining poison had not disappeared, but it was not. It's no big deal. The toxin of the dagger seems to only cause maximum damage to living creatures in the first moment, and then the toxin will be quickly eliminated and weakened in nature. Su Qing came back, holding Fen Yelong's head in her hand. There were some injuries on her body, which were obviously caused by Fen Yelong's death struggle. Su Qing looked at Subai, and then at the two Hellfire shotguns on the ground. She walked over, picked up the two guns, and then looked at Subai. Subai smiled at her. Su Qing's eyes turned cold. "Believe it or not, I will kill you with your gun." Subai nodded, but soon, two Hellfire shotguns were thrown in front of Subai. "Let's form a team." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiao Long. Chapter 239. Subai stood up unsteadily, picked up his Hellfire shotgun from the ground, then looked at the corpses around him and said, "Split the spoils equally. If it's not evenly divided, will you find an opportunity to kill me?" Su Qing asked, Shenmai's grudges versus Rice's grudges. "Am I that bad?" Subai smiled, then touched his nose. "It seems that I am. Pack up everything, let's find a place to rest and heal, and then discuss the specific distribution issues. The side tasks will definitely not be completed in our current state, but looking around now, it is definitely not a loss. Is not it?" Subai looked at the corpses around him. Wang Lizang, Frozen Man, Pu Yao Yao, Xiao Ma Ji, Fen Yelong, and Zhang Su. The living people before had now turned into cold beings. He couldn't help but feel a little sad. Of course, Subai was sad. Yes, it's not that these people died, but that the so-called team battle actually developed into what it is now. Twists and turns. But it's not the rhythm of the team fight itself. Actually, I really wanted to have a good team fight, Subai said seriously while collecting the trophies. Then, he walked to Pu Yao Yao's headless body. "I admire this captain very much." Yes, Subai did admire this woman Pu Yao Yao. Even, to a certain extent, Pu Yao Yao was a bit similar to himself. They are all people who dare to show courage and dare to do things. The organization of this team battle was originally initiated by her. She is a very capable and intelligent woman. However, she cannot control people's hearts, nor can she control a single person. An individual's instantaneous transformation of interests. For example, Fen Yelong. If Fen Yelong had not rebelled against him, given the situation at that time, his team would have had a chance to defeat the other team in one fell swoop, a team that was several levels stronger than our own. However, the most ruthless thing in the world is that no matter what happens, Pu Yao Yao is already dead and died here. Okay, I've taken all the valuable ones and prepared to retreat. I'm really worried that there will be a few teams who think it's hopeless to capture the points and come here to try their luck, Su Qing reminded. Subai nodded and left here with her. The two of them didn't walk too far, because they didn't need to go too far. Su Qing walked behind. She had a way to erase all the traces left by the two of them walking, even the smell. Therefore, unless there is a very strong team that is determined to chase them, there is basically no hope of finding them, and now, the truly powerful team should still be fighting for the lead and doing side missions. On the outskirts of the demolition area, there is a work shed, the kind that is converted from a container. This kind of work shed was rare in the past few years. In Subai's memory, it should have become widely known after the Wenchuan earthquake, and it began to become more popular in the future. There are more, and many temporary buildings also use this kind of container house. I found a room, and there was electricity inside, but there was no one there. It seemed that the horror broadcaster deliberately cleaned up the already deserted demolition area more thoroughly for the sake of side missions. The world of this story was originally a horror broadcaster. What is created naturally becomes whatever it wants to be. The conditions here are pretty good. Many of the temporary work sheds next to construction sites are no longer the humid and hot places that most people think of. Although the work sheds are still simpler, at least they have air conditioners, fans, and even Wi-Fi washing machines. They are all complete. Of course, this has something to do with the fact that the dormitory chosen by Subai and Su Qing is a place where technical personnel live. The conditions where construction workers live should be somewhat worse. After turning on the air conditioner, Subai lay on the bed and covered himself with the quilt. The air conditioner is hot air, Su Qing reminded. I'm very cold, Subai said. Su Qing thought for a while and nodded, understood. Immediately afterwards, Su Qing put everything on a table, pushed the table over, and placed it next to Subai's bed. They are all their relics. Are we dividing the inheritance now? Su Qing looked at Subai with a meaningful smile. When we first formed the group, Did you ever think about this day? Subai shook his head. Hypocrisy, Su Qing said. When you and I were frozen together, you took the initiative to put too much cold energy into your body and deliberately prevented me from dying. In fact, it already showed your thoughts at that time. Su Qing pointed out the reason why she could survive. In fact, she was different from Subai. Subai's zombie bloodline evolved from cold poison. In addition, Subai's bloodlineage had a cold-blooded constitution, so Subai's zombie bloodline evolved from cold poison. Bai Kangfeng's ability is naturally much stronger than ordinary people, but Su Qing is different. She is an assassin. Assassin, as the name suggests, although she is a great threat, it also means that she is fragile. Su Qing's own defense, his ability to withstand damage, was far inferior to Subai's. If Subai hadn't deliberately gathered the cold air into her body when they were frozen together, Su Qing knew that she would have frozen to death at that time. Subai stopped talking, just silently sat up and reached out to turn over the things on the table. Xiao Ma's is 2 axes, a steel ring and an iron ring. Pu Yao Yao's is a jade pendant. Perhaps, for Pu Yao Yao, the strongest thing is her own demon blood, so she does not rely on foreign objects in particular, unlike Subai, who spent such a high price to exchange for the hellfire powder. Shotgun, but save story points to strengthen your bloodline. Wang Lezang wore a necklace and a piece of close-fitting underwear. Su Qing was also very meticulous, even the underwear was not spared. Of course, this underwear should have special effects. The frozen man has a lot of things, a lot of small objects and jewelry, and each energy wave is not very strong, but this is a set, and it is estimated that the effect will be increased when all of them are used on the body. Fen Yalong is a formation book and a jade ruler. The value of Pu Yao Yao's jade pendant should be a little lower than that of the hellfire shotgun, but it won't be much lower. Fen Yalong was very moved when he saw it. It also explained its value and preciousness. Subai made an estimate in his mind. 800 stories points or even higher should be about the same. Most people can't use Ponaboy's axe, but the iron ring and steel ring should have the effect of enhancing one's physical defense or sharpening one's body. The 2 items should add up to about 1,000 story points. The value of the frozen man set is definitely not lower than the price of the hellfire shotgun, and may even be higher. However, this set should only be suitable for this category of enhancers, so it is more difficult to get rid of it. Unlike the hellfire shotgun, has a wide range of applications and is easier to sell. If Subai is willing to sell it, it is not a big problem to sell the hellfire shotgun for 700 to 800 story points, but this set of items is even more valuable than the hellfire shotgun. Even higher, even 500 story points may not be wanted by anyone. From the perspective of not pursuing resale, the total value of the items on this table is about 5,000 story points. After all, they are personal weapons for powerful listeners, so the value will naturally not be low. Most of them are in WeChat. The store cannot exchange them, but they find them themselves in the story world. They also mean adventures, and they can be regarded as things that can be encountered but not sought. If you want to resell it, you will probably have to give a discount. If you resell something with 5,000 story points, you should be able to get about 3,000 more story points, but this is indeed more profitable than earning story points in this story world. Much more. I'll choose first, Su Qing said. As she spoke, she picked up Pu Yao Yao's jade pendant. You continue. Subai reached out and took the set of jewelry from the frozen man. Su Qing nodded and took Wang Lezang's underwear and necklace. Subai then took over Fen Yalong's jade ruler and formation book. Then Su Qing grabbed the axe and the steel ring. The assassin couldn't use the axe. It seemed that Su Qing planned to take the axe out of the story world and sell it. Subai smiled slightly. One person is missing. Jiangsu actually doesn't have much on him, and I'm too lazy to take it, Su Qing said. This is against the rules, Subai said. I know, but there is one most precious thing in Jiangsu's body. If no one else can use it, it is suitable for you to use. Su Qing took out a bloody heart from a cloth bag wrapped in clothes and threw it on the table. The heart was heavy and made a crisp sound when it landed on the table. You deserve a heart that belongs to an excellent warlock. Su Qing stood up and said honestly, I originally thought I wanted it, but after thinking about it, I found that I really can't eat it, and I'm afraid of keeping it. As time goes by, the freshness of the heart decreases, and the effect decreases. Even if it brings out the story world, the value will be greatly reduced due to the passage of time, which is not cost-effective. Sudbai's Adam's apple moved. Faced with this lesson's still bright red heart, he took a deep breath. I was a little full from sucking brother Xiao Ma's blood just now. You mean, you won't eat either? Pour me a glass of water. I should be able to hold on for a while. It's a good thing, so don't let it go to waste. Haha. Su Qing sneered twice and went to pour water for Sudbai. Soon, she came over with a large glass of water, put down the water glass and handed it to Sudbai. At the same time, she returned to the previous topic and said, you actually knew that Fen Yelong was going to betray you a long time ago, right? Sudbai was stunned for a moment while holding the tea, then nodded. How did you know? Su Qing asked. I have seen a friend use the formation to induce thunder. First of all, it does not take such a long time. Secondly, the repressed thunder aura in the sky has long appeared, but it has not been condensed and formed on purpose. Su Qing tapped her fingers lightly on the table. If I remember correctly, your team used spiritual chains to connect each other's hearts, right? And you have discovered it, but you didn't say anything, and you didn't remind or notify you. My teammates, in fact, as long as you send a thought, they will know. They don't have to die at all, at least, there is hope of survival. Sudbai expressionlessly took a bite of the heart, chewing it, and kept making crunching sounds in his mouth. It seemed that he was eating very sweetly. At the same time, drops of blood from the heart overflowed from the corners of Sudbai's mouth, looking slightly ferocious. And monsters? This question, in fact, does not need to be answered. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 240. The next morning, the weather was not very good. It was gray and drizzling, making the already muddy ground even more difficult to walk on. Because it was a demolition area, there were no roads. Only some large machinery drove past. The groove that remains. Walking along the groove, Su Qing walked in front and Sudbai walked behind. Looking at the two axes carried on Su Qing's back, Sudbai always found it so funny. Those two axes must be valuable, but for a slender assassin like Su Qing to carry such a weapon, it always looked a bit nondescript. According to Su Qing's plan, the two of them should first find a place close to the city and with convenient transportation to settle down, and then wait for the next plan of the horror broadcast. Some things that are not needed for the time being should be hidden first, and then you can take them with you when you feel that the time is about the same, or when you have almost completed the main tasks. In fact, the rest of the things can basically be carried with you. What you really need first, find a place to hide, just these two axes. The frozen man's set of jewelry has been worn by Sudbai. The 3 rings are not like rings but can be put on the fingers. The cold and metallic wristbands, the earrings hanging from the left earlobe, and the chest the blue plates, these are the set of jewelry of the frozen man. When they are all worn on the body, they also play a role in relieving the heat and cooling down. But whenever Sudbai is about to stimulate the cold poison in his body, I felt instantly excited by the set of jewelry. Sudbai had a feeling that when he activated the cold poison, with the blessing of the set of jewelry, the power of the cold poison could at least be doubled. This set of jewelry only responds to ice energy attributes, and has no response to other energy attributes. It seems to be tailor-made for the frozen man. Of course, it is now cheaper for Sudbai. However, Subai looks like he is dressing up like this. When I look in the mirror, I really feel like a little affair who is just hanging out in society. I walked out of the demolition area, got on a highway, and stopped a car. Su Qing's actions were very rough. The van driver originally wanted to tease Su Qing, who was wearing very scantily attire. Because of the battle yesterday, her clothes were severely damaged, so Su Qing wore the innermost assassin suit and threw away the damaged clothes. Now, she looked like she was wearing a Victoria's Secret suit with a little more fabric. She looked more like a street girl than a street girl. It's no wonder that the greasy-faced van driver rolled down the window and started to tell dirty jokes. However, Su Qing quickly grabbed him by the neck and lifted him out. After he was knocked unconscious, he was thrown on the field beside the road. At the same time, Su Qing took off his coat and put it on himself. Seeing Su Qing sitting directly in the passenger seat, Subai naturally sat in the driving seat and prepared to drive. I thought you were quite used to this style of dressing, Subai teased. Some men are so cunning and mean. They show you a whole night in vain, and then they deliberately tease you the next day to show that they are not interested in your body. They are so hypocritical. Subai smiled, knowing that he would not get any advantage by arguing with this woman. The car was driving on the highway, with the toll station in front of it, and a little further ahead would be the city. However, just then, a truck appeared in front of him. The truck was driving very fast and kept honking its horn. Generally speaking, when a car driver sees a truck driver, he always has a kind of psychological fear. Perhaps it is more appropriate to call him cautious, because the truck driver has a high chassis. If a collision occurs, the average car can barely move it, and sometimes, when trucks are transporting goods, due to their high inertia, when encountering some unexpected situations, those experienced truck drivers will not turn the steering wheel, but will be determined to go straight ahead. Drunk driving? Subai asked. At this time, the truck was still 100 meters away from his car, but it kept changing back and forth between the two lanes, which made Subai frown slightly. If it was true if you die in a car accident in the story world, it would be really funny. Su Qing's eyes narrowed, and then she said suddenly, "Be careful." Subai nodded and began to slow down. However, when they were about to meet, the truck suddenly turned abruptly from its own lane. It was really intending to hit someone intentionally. Subai quickly turned the steering wheel to the right, and then stepped on the accelerator. The van accelerated at this moment, barely avoiding the impact of the truck, while the truck quickly returned to the steering wheel and drove on the wrong road. Stopped after some distance. Subai also stopped his van. Su Qing put a hand on Subai's leg and shook her head slightly. It looks like they are the audience. Su Qing meant not to cause trouble, especially when the two of them are not in good condition now. What are these people thinking? They can't kill people casually in the real world, so they let it out in the story world. Subai looked at the reflector. Someone had already stepped off the truck over there. 5 people, 2 women and 3 men, all dressed in modern clothes, are walking here step by step, looking a bit undisciplined. You took the initiative to provoke, and you plan to come down and continue to pester. Subai showed an incomprehensible look on his face. That's not right. The audience is not that stupid. If these 5 people are a team, they should not play like this regardless of their identity as Subai and Su Qing. Su Qing did not urge Subai to leave quickly at this time. Instead, like Subai, she observed the 5 people getting closer behind her through the reflector. Their eyes are green. Subai suddenly discovered this. Damn it, are they listeners? If not, then what the hell are they? Maybe something happened in yesterday's side mission that we don't know about. Su Qing guessed. These 5 people have no magic weapons or other equipment. They look normal, but they are actually the largest. It's not normal. I don't believe that these 5 people have reached the stage where they can fuse their own weapons. At this moment, these 5 people suddenly began to shake, and then their bodies exploded like bubbles bursting. There were only 5 pools of green liquid left on the road, but there seemed to be something crystal clear on the liquid. Things. Subai and Suqing looked at each other and got out of the car together. The two of them walked slowly over until they reached the 5 green traces. They didn't find anything wrong at all, let alone any danger. Subai bent down and picked up the crystal-like thing, and Suqing did the same on the other side. At this moment, a prompt sounded in Subai's mind. Whether a team relationship is established or not, team members must not engage in harmful behavior with subjective intent. Team up, Suqing smiled a little. Are these 5 people NPCs? The crystals in this team are so stiff that they can be compared to the Ely milk commercials in Hollywood blockbusters. Subai was also a little speechless. The two of them were surprised before, but the result was unexpected. They were just 5 old men who looked like they were delivering mission props in the game. The crystal in Suqing's hand disappeared, but a green mark appeared on the center of Suqing's eyebrows. Subai also replied in his heart that he agreed. Soon, the crystal in his hand also disappeared. He reached out and touched the center of his eyebrows, and there was something there. Trace. Team formation completed. Squad sequence, K. Team size, 2. Has the squad size been established? Suqing shook her head slightly. It's just the 2 of us. It's unrealistic to find a suitable single person now, and judging from our serial numbers, there should be almost 10 people from the team in front of us who have established a team relationship through this. Maybe the next phase of the mission will be released as soon as the team relationship is established, and we don't have time to leave the mission alone and continue to find partners. Subai nodded and chose OK in his heart. Suqing also confirmed over there. Soon, a new prompt sound appeared. The number of the team is established, 2-person team. Now release the main task 1. Dear listeners, welcome to Horror Radio. I am the host of Horror Radio. I don't have a name, because the name here has no meaning at all. You must miss my voice very much, right? It's a pity and pitiful thing. There is one thing I have to tell you. To all my fellow listeners in this story world, you unfortunately became the guinea pigs for this experiment as the broadcast prepares to test and refine the squad system. So, you are the first listeners to get a taste of this. Here is a city occupied by cats. On a full moon night, cats meow incessantly. There is no difference between humans and cats. People are cats and cats are humans. This is a distorted city, a sick city, a city that is not tolerated by the world. However, God is merciful, and terrorist broadcasts are even more merciful. Therefore, it sent down its radiance. Starting from midnight today, every night, a baby will be born from the mother's body. They are pure human blood and will not become cat people. They are the new life given to the city by God and are the hope of the city. For 7 consecutive days, 7 newborns will be born at 0 o'clock in a corner of the city. Finding a newborn and having his team will give you the opportunity to ride Noah's Ark in 7 days. The sound of the terror broadcast ended, which also meant that the main mission 1 was released. Suqing muttered to herself with some confusion, Noah's Ark? What does it mean? Subai's face showed an extremely serious expression. This is the meaning of Noah's Ark. The entire main mission 1 means that each team must have at least 1 newborn in their hands before they can get a ride on Noah's Ark. Ark's chance. 7 newborn babies means that at most 7 teams can be qualified to go to Noah's Ark. Suqing just didn't understand the meaning of the English word, but she knew the story of Noah's Ark, and she understood it immediately, and said with a little surprise. This also means that after 7 days, the terrorist broadcast will destroy the city, and only 7 teams will have a chance to survive. Dividing line. A few days ago, Long was browsing a book in the train station bookstore when he saw a story, a beautiful ancient Chinese story that everyone is familiar with since they were very young. I believe that no one does not know this story, and then Long suddenly became inspired and interested. Make an adaptation of it and ruin this beautiful and fresh story. Long now suddenly felt that he was just like Subai, running further and further down the path of perversion. Don't panic, hold on tight to the dragon. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Disyao Long. Chapter 241. How about it? The conditions are not bad. Subai held a glass of red wine in his hand and swayed it slowly. Sitting on the armchair, he looked so leisurely. There were several tables of delicious snacks around him, and a soothing piano music was playing at the same time. Suqing stood by the window, turned around, looked at Subai, snorted coldly, and said, "Seeing you like this, I thought we had completed the mission and returned to the real world. This is the attitude towards life." Subai took a sip of red wine, put his feet up on the coffee table very comfortably, stretched out his right hand, took out a grape, put it into his mouth, and spit it out after a while. "Grape seeds, grapes are very sweet, you can try them." Seeing that Subai still didn't know how to restrain himself, Suqing's chest rose and fell. "I want to know if there is a way to dissolve the team relationship." Obviously, Suqing was very dissatisfied with Subai's current attitude of carpe diem, and she wouldn't listen to Subai's words. "Aren't you just listening to music, eating fruit, and drinking red wine?" Subai pretended to be innocent and shrugged, "Guilty." Suqing pointed to the calendar hanging on the wall and said, "One day has passed and we have less than 6 days left. If we can't find a newborn baby to use as a talisman, we will be destroyed and obliterated." "I know, why did you repeat the main mission with me?" Subai tapped his finger on his temple, "It seems that I haven't reached the age of Alzheimer's disease yet." Suqing sighed, then reached out and grabbed the red wine bottle in front of Subai, and blew directly on the mouth of the bottle. Subai shook his head and smiled, "It's really a cow chewing a peony. You must have had good conditions in your family since you were a child. I am different. My family is a working-class family." Suqing glanced at Subai and became the audience. In fact, she didn't feel inferior when she said these words. After all, for the audience, glory, wealth, and so on are really no different from passing clouds, and there is no pretense. Pretentious. "I'm an orphan," Subai said truthfully. "My parents passed away early, but they left a lot of money. I have never experienced that kind of financial hardship." Suqing's face darkened slightly and she lowered her head, "I'm sorry." "It's okay." Subai stood up from the chair, "You are actually very serious when cooking, which proves that you are a person who pays great attention to the details of life. In fact, in the story world, it does not prevent you from enjoying life. There are people around you. Dead corpses, then eat dead corpses. After all, in order to survive, there are fine wine and food around, so why bother yourself?" Suqing opened her mouth to speak, but Subai pressed down her hand and signaled to wait for herself to finish. "I know what you are anxious about, but there is really no need to be anxious. It is difficult to find it if we look for it now. In this city, big or small, there are still many hospitals, and some small community medical stations must be added. There are even unexpected premature births that are too late to go to the hospital, etc. I don't believe that a terrorist broadcaster would be so kind as to send all 7 pregnant women to a large hospital, and the due date of delivery is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. A terrorist broadcaster would not do such a considerate thing. Unexpected premature birth, different customs, different conditions, and even the possibility that the husband of the pregnant woman is a fugitive and they can only use scissors to give birth on their own. All these possibilities have completely spread the location of the birth of the baby. I predict that there will definitely be pregnant women preparing to give birth in regular hospitals, but not all of them will be there. There may be only one, or at most 2, and that one is rare. At this time, there are probably many teams staring at it. Is it appropriate for us to take part? After all, our team is just the 2 of us." Suqing nodded thoughtfully. At this time, her expression was much more relaxed. She knew clearly that Subai was not really here to enjoy himself as she thought. One more day is one more day. In fact, Subai wanted to there were many more than herself. She had thought about going to various hospitals to investigate. At this time, Su Qing also thought that since she had thought of the method, other teams would definitely think of it. Then, are we really going to do nothing? Su Qing couldn't help but ask when she saw Subai going to open a second bottle of red wine, because Subai didn't explain the method just now, just his thoughts. According to my prediction, since our team sequence is K, there should be teams like Abdivkaj in front of us. Maybe there are a few letter teams behind us, a dozen teams, but there are only 7 newborns. Converted, this means that out of more than a dozen teams, only 7 teams can get tickets to ride on Noah's Ark to avoid the disaster of destruction. This is almost a chance of either choice. Do you think that the horror broadcast will deliberately make things difficult for each team and let the newborns be born one by one in a place where no one knows whether to poop or not? Then only 1 or 2 teams found the newborn. Even if the other teams knew there was a newborn, they couldn't find it. In the end, only 1 or 2 teams got the tickets, and the rest all returned to the West. This is not in line with the aesthetics of horror broadcasting. In the last sentence, Subai emphasized his tone. Obviously, he was very sure. He took another sip of red wine and continued. 7 newborns definitely means that 7 teams will get tickets. One of them may have an accident, but it is impossible for 4 or 5 to have accidents. Therefore, it has only been a day, so we really don't need to rush, and we don't have to worry about it. We need to be anxious. We can spend another 3 or 4 days enjoying life before we take action. By then, it is estimated that 4 teams will already have newborns. We can rob them and steal their children. Of course, you can also look for the newborn baby that appears below. Now, if a newborn baby appears, it will definitely be a bloody battle. At this time, there is no need for us to join in the fun. In fact, I even think that if all the people in the team do nothing and just party together every day, drink, sing, make love, and make love, those newborns won't need us to find them, and they will be automatically taken care of. It was sent to our dance hall by various coincidences and deliberately let us see it. Of course, this prerequisite does not exist. After all, competition is still there. Are you familiar with the host of the horror broadcast? Su Qing was in a good mood at this time. She took an apple and took a bite. Actually, if you think of horror broadcast as a game, it is playing with us, and we are actually playing with it. It has made us play through it, and we have actually played it through. Everyone's rules, everyone's philosophy, even everyone's aesthetics will subconsciously align. Of course, we take the initiative to align ourselves with horror broadcasts. Sometimes, mastering this kind of thinking can save a lot of effort in the story world. For example, if a horror broadcast throws you in a desert and you assess the situation clearly, just lie there and wait for death, and a clear spring will appear below soon. Subai remembered that he was like this in the last story world. He was tossing and turning in the desert and simply didn't leave. He sat directly in the desert and then discovered that the muzzle of the Hellfire shotgun inserted in the sand was actually wet. It felt like I discovered the glacier under the sand layer. In fact, not only Subai, but also Fatty, Monk, and Gyatso all have this awareness. Everyone can clearly capture the temper and character of the horror broadcast, a cold and cool character that pursues storytelling to the extreme. You make it sound very simple, but why can't I? Su Qing asked. A woman who can even be wrong about whether the person she killed is really dead or not. Subai looked at Su Qing. There is no need to say the following words, the meaning is already obvious. Do you mean to say I'm stupid? Su Qing's eyes narrowed. She actually knew that there was something behind Subai's words. This made it clear that Subai wanted to be the captain. Even if there were only 2 people in the team, there must be a leader and a subordinate, and there must be a person who makes the decision. Before, he had actually fallen into Sudbai's trap step by step. When Sudbai explained to himself, the relationship between the two had actually changed. Unless he didn't want the team to continue moving forward, otherwise, Sudbai must be recognized as the captain, and Sudbai must make the decision when something happens. It's just not obvious that he's smart. Sudbai put down the wine glass. In fact, if Pu Yao Yao had not died, that woman would indeed be suitable to be the captain, but there is nothing she can do about it now. Su Qing, a woman, cannot be considered stupid, but she is really not very smart. Sudbai is also I know that I am actually not suitable to be the captain. What if I get sick? But now that there are only 2 people in this team, I have to rush to the top. Being the captain does not bring any benefits. Okay, there is a cafeteria downstairs. The environment is not bad. Let's go down to eat. After all, these snacks and fruits cannot be eaten as meals. The appetites of the 2 of us should be quite large. Su Qing nodded, took a coat and put it on her body. Sudbai also put on his windbreaker. The Hellfire shotgun cannot be separated from the body, so the windbreaker cannot be separated from the body. The 2 of them walked out of the guest room together and walked to the end of the corridor. Sudbai pressed the downward elevator button. Ding! The elevator came up and the door opened. There was a man and a woman inside, a couple. The husband looked a little honest and said apologetically to Sudbai, "I'm sorry, please give in." Sudbai and Su Qing subconsciously took 2 steps away and let the elevator door out. Subsequently, the husband took his wife's hand and carefully walked out of the elevator and walked to the guest room. My wife's belly swelled. Su Qing looked at Sudbai with a shocked expression. Sudbai was also a little confused about whether to laugh or cry. He reached out and touched the tip of his nose. Oh shit. It's rare for a horror broadcaster to be so generous and so cooperative with oneself pretending. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 242. The buffet was changed to instant noodles. Sudbai changed his room and opened 2 rooms, one next to the couple's room and the other directly opposite the corridor of the couple's room. Sudbai was in the room directly opposite, and Su Qing was in the room next door. Su Qing's room shared a balcony with the couple's room, and the distance between the 2 balconies was less than half a meter. At this time, Sudbai left her door ajar and sat there with a small stool, eating instant noodles with a plastic fork in her hand. Su Qing sat at the door of her room with a seasoning packet. The sound insulation effect of the room was good, Sudbai was sure of this. The couple closed the door and could hardly hear the voices outside. Su Qing asked while tearing apart the seasoning packet, "Why not just control them?" Sudbai took a sip of noodle soup and smiled, "Do you believe that if you dare to do such a terrifying broadcast, you will directly cause her to have an abortion?" Su Qing was stunned for a moment, then nodded, took boiling water from Sudbai, soaked the noodles, and took it to the balcony. Sudbai finished eating the noodles and went to the bathroom to wash up. At this time, the elevator door on this floor suddenly opened and Sudbai, who was washing his face, stopped. A feeling of being spied on ran through Sudbai's body, making Sudbai's scalp feel numb. Damn it, it's a spiritual enhancer. Has a team already found this place? Someone is coming. Sudbai's cell phone and Su Qing's cell phone kept talking. The cell phone was actually obtained from the city, and the phone card was also a new one. Oh, has anyone come up already? There is a van parked on the road below. There should be a few people there. After Su Qing finished speaking, she made a hissing sound, which sounded like she had taken a bite of instant noodles. Sudbai also smiled. This woman didn't have big breasts, so why did she look so stupid? She didn't forget to eat at this time. They must have received the news, so they started exploring the area. Since it is a spiritual enhancer searching here, there should be at least one companion around him to protect him. What do you mean, my captain? At the beginning, you must not be timid. Let's declare our sovereignty first. This couple and the newborn have been booked by us. Let them move their paws away. You're wrong, I should have cut off their claws. Su Qing took another bite of instant noodles. I saw there was another person in the car, and 2 others went to the hotel opposite. According to the judging from the rule that Terror Broadcast gave us 5 crystals when forming a team, there are only 5 people in a team at most. Therefore, since you have sensed that the spiritual enhancer has come to our level, it means that there is at most one beside him. Companion, we are 2v2. Very good, Comrade Su Qing, let's discuss tactics. Subai began to apply facial cleanser on his face and kept rubbing it. Let's attack from the front and back. You're facing me from behind. Phew, I've finished eating the instant noodles. It's really nutritious food. I'll go directly from the balcony to the room behind them later. You go from the front of your room and try to move quickly. Solve the battle. By the way, I have Catwoman's jade pendant, coupled with my own assassin concealment skills. I am confident that the other party's mental power cannot detect my abnormality when I don't use my own energy. What about you? If we have actually been exposed to the scanning of the opponent's spiritual controller, the discussion just now would be too embarrassing. I've eaten too much. Subai began to wash his face with water. Huh, Su Qing didn't know what Subai meant. You don't know that eating brain flowers can prevent mental scanning? Subai asked. Su Qing touched her forehead. Subai, do you think I'm mentally retarded? Haha, don't worry, he can't scan me, unless he is really awesome to a certain level, but it shouldn't be the case. Didn't you just say that 2 of his teammates have gone to the hotel opposite? If he finds out that he is here, there are still 2 audience members on the first floor. Will you let your companions go to the hotel opposite to investigate? However, this also reminded me. I estimate that there should be another pregnant woman in the hotel opposite. After this is settled, we will ask these 2 pregnant women about their due dates. We must make sure that they give birth within 6 days, 1 more day. None. I really have to thank them for reminding them. Okay, let's get started. Su Qing did not use her own energy, but directly used her own agility and movement to jump over one balcony after another and go to the back. Subai wiped his face with a towel, then naturally took the hairdryer and walked out of the room. Damn it, the service in this hotel is so bad. The hairdryer is broken, and the room rate is so expensive. I'm so stupid to treat you like a fool. While cursing and yelling, Subai walked angrily toward the elevator door with a hairdryer. At the elevator entrance, a young man wearing a red pullover was standing there with his eyes closed. Beside him, stood a man dressed in the woman in a black suit had her eyes closed, but she was obviously on full alert. When Subai came over, the woman moved her eyelid slightly, her ring finger on her right hand trembled slightly, and a handful of shiny things were already embedded in her fingertips. Grass. Are you planning to kill 1,000 by mistake rather than let one go? Subai continued to walk forward angrily on the surface. The woman opposite had obviously not discovered her true identity, but she was ready to kill. Obviously, she didn't want to take risks and was too lazy to take risks. She might as well kill them all. Anyway, this is a story world, and killing a few people is not a big deal. Of course, if you come to destroy the world, although there will be no causal calculation, the story world will naturally reject you, and maybe some ghosts will come out to do it. But it won't be a big deal if you kill a few fewer people. Really wary. It seems that he is a melee fighter and assists in physical attacks, but I don't know if he is traveling with Su Qing. When Subai walked to the position 5 meters away from the man, The man suddenly showed a look of pain. A red dot appeared between his eyebrows and began to grow and shrink. The woman, at this time, had already flicked it. A sharp blade pierced Sudbai's neck directly. Sudbai came over angrily and there was a bloody cut on his neck. He immediately fell down and lay on the ground. Alas, I have to pretend to be dead again and wipe my neck. This is what Sudbai is thinking now. The woman noticed something unusual about the man and asked, "What's wrong?" The man opened his eyes with a hint of worry. "I found a pregnant woman in the room at the left turn in front, but a spiritual seed in my body just now told me that I am in danger." Danger? The woman turned her head slightly and looked at the guy whose neck she had just wiped. Then, her pupils suddenly stagnated. The guy who she thought had been easily killed by her was actually lying on the ground with two hands in his hands. "Point your gun at this place." Bang. 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 Sudbai fired 4 shots in a row. The woman subconsciously wanted to rush forward to block the bullet, because she knew how fragile the spiritual enhancer was, but she also understood how important it was to have a spiritual enhancer in the team. However, when she saw Sudbai's hellfire shotgun after the golden barrage sprayed out from inside, her heart trembled. She clearly realized that she could not withstand such a terrible attack. The next moment, she retreated suddenly and retreated behind the man. The man turned around, a little shocked. The red dot between his eyebrows exploded immediately, and a totem like a carp appeared, blocking him. However, the biggest effect of the hellfire shotgun is actually on the soul attribute. After 3 shots, the totem he collapsed immediately, and the man cried blood in his eyes, but he did not suffer for long. The 4th shot directly destroyed his upper body, leaving only 2 legs standing in place. In fact, when the first shot was fired, Sudbai knew that it was not a very strong team, so he didn't panic. In fact, strictly speaking, he plus Suqing, his individual strength in this story world was it should be considered the upper reaches among the audience. Sudbai got up from the ground and smiled at the woman while refilling the bullets. In fact, Sudbai's 2 guns were fully loaded with 16 bullets and only fired 4 rounds. There was no need to refill the bullets at all. It was okay. Keep shooting, but you have to find something for Suqing to do, otherwise it would be so lonely to climb so many balconies and find that everyone was killed by you first. Of course, the most important thing is that bullets are also very expensive. The woman subconsciously turned around and prepared to leave. She made a very wise choice, because the chance of winning against Sudbai in 1v1 was really slim. But when she turned around and ran a few steps, a black shadow appeared behind her. A sharp dagger directly cut her neck and cut it off, cutting off her entire head. The scene was bloody. Very miserable. Suqing held the woman's head in her hand and looked at Sudbai with a smile. When the enemy fled in panic, the assassin attacked him. "Don't be too easy." Sudbai shrugged and said indifferently, "Good habit. From now on, you will have to behead someone who kills someone. You see, this woman is just like you before. She only knows how to do technical work and wipe her neck," Sudbai said and touched himself. The wound on his neck was already healing. "My neck has been wiped a lot lately." Suqing dropped her head on the ground. "There are still some of their teammates over there, what should we do? Let's take care of it together. I'll go from above and you go from below. If there's a pregnant woman in the hotel opposite, we'll take her over and find out their due date first. I'm curious, what if their due dates are all 6 days away?" Sudbai smiled and said, "There is something called premature birth. If 2 pregnant women give birth prematurely at the same time, it shouldn't be a big problem if one of them survives, right? Horror broadcasts shouldn't make 2 pregnant women miscarry together in a malicious way. You're a scumbag, you don't deserve to be a parent." Suqing snorted coldly, then jumped down the stairs of the emergency passage and prepared to outflank them. Sudbai touched his chin and said to himself, "I already have a lovely son. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Disyao. Chapter 243. Subai kept the corpses here and didn't think about cleaning them up. The top priority was to quickly kill the 2 or 3 remaining audience members in the hotel opposite. There also appears to be a pregnant woman. When they arrived at Su Qing's room, there happened to be a plastic pipe on the balcony leading to the opposite floor. I didn't know it was used to transport something, but it did save Subai a lot of effort. He rubbed his hands gently. Then he grabbed the pipe and moved it directly like an ape. With Subai's current physique, this level was not a problem at all. He could even do better than the gymnasts participating in the Olympics. When Subai was approaching the building opposite, he swayed and landed on the balcony of a guest room in the hotel opposite. Pushing open the floor-to-ceiling window of the room, Subai walked into the room. This should be an empty room. The room was tidied up. Subai opened the door and walked out. He didn't know which floor those people were on. So I subconsciously had to look at the location of the stairs, and then walked over. I don't know if it was a coincidence. When Subai walked over, there happened to be 2 men walking up. One was wearing casual clothes, and the other was wearing an undershirt. Sweating slightly and looking a little rushed. Subai's eyes sank subconsciously. He suddenly felt like the woman before. He would rather kill 1,000 people by mistake than let one go. But at this moment, the voice of a pager appeared on one of the men. 503, 503. Received. Subai subconsciously put away his hand that was about to draw the gun, and walked down calmly, passing by the 2 men. The 2 men went upstairs and knocked hard on the door at the corner. Shouted. Police patrol, open the door, come out. It was 2 policemen doing rounds. Subai heard Chu Zhao say that what some policemen actually like to do most is to catch prostitutes. Because the risk is low and it is easy to get results, they can go to hotels when they have nothing to do. Now hotels must require real name registration. People who want to stay in the room must also register. If they violate the regulations, they will be fined. I have to say that the story world of horror broadcast is still very grounded. Buzz. At this moment, there was a sudden vibration from the first floor downstairs, right at the entrance of the stairs. Subai leaned down and saw 2 figures fighting below. One of them was Su Qing. At this moment, a man ran up with a pregnant woman in his arms. Apparently, the one below took the pregnant woman away first. After Terror Broadcast perfected the squad system, it really made the squad become like a squad. Moreover, the task completion rate is based on the individual squad. There must not be any intentional harm between the team members. It also really maximizes the strength and advantages of the team were brought into play. It was not like the scattered sand before, wary of and calculating against each other, but truly condensed into a rope. Subai took out the Hellfire shotgun and walked down with the muzzle of the gun raised. The man wore a peaked cap and a beard. He was not very tall, but very strong. When he saw Subai standing above him, he was stunned for a moment, his lips turned white, and he was obviously very nervous. Put her down and give her to me, and I'll let you go, Subai said kindly. Do you think I'm stupid? The man raised his head, with a fierce look in his eyes. Of course, he was more frightened. There's no reward for killing you, so why should I waste bullets? Subai asked. Haha, at worst it's just a matter of death. The man put his hand on the neck of the unconscious pregnant woman. Get out of my way. Subai frowned slightly and wanted to laugh. You threaten me with her? She is not my child in her belly. Let me go. When she gives birth to the child, you can come and snatch the child. Now, let me go. Also, the one below is also yours, so let her get out too. Subai nodded. There are only a few tickets, so don't be impulsive. Subai sighed and signaled that he had compromised. The man also breathed a long sigh of relief. His arms and calves were actually trembling, and he was obviously extremely scared. In fact, Subai now had a general judgment on the strength of this team, and it was the same as what Subai had joined for the first time. Sun Hayaran's team was about the same. Pu Yao Yao overturned the entire off-road vehicle by herself, causing Sun Hayaran's entire team to lose their combat effectiveness. Well, the strength gap is actually that big. However, when the man was about to move away, a gunshot rang out. Boom! Subai raised the muzzle of the gun. After all, the Hellfire shotgun fired a barrage, not a single bullet. Therefore, if it was aimed at this man and shot, not only the man would definitely be killed, but also the person in his arms. Pregnant women had no chance of being spared, so this time Subai did a difficult job and just missed the mark. Although Subai was reluctant to use the Hellfire shotgun to practice shooting in the real world, Subai had trained himself for a long time in the gun club for a shotgun with a similar firing trajectory, and he had honed some of his skills and gun feel. The man was holding a pregnant woman across his side, so the lower edge of the barrage swept across his heavenly spirit but not the pregnant woman. Half of the man's head disappeared directly, and his brain was completely evaporated in an instant, but because of this, the whole body the man fell backwards, and the pregnant woman he was holding also fell down with him. Subai was too late to hug the pregnant woman at this time, and could only watch the pregnant woman rolling down the stairs with the man's body. At this time, Su Qing rushed up the stairs carrying a human head. She was shocked when she saw the pregnant woman lying on the ground. She immediately came over to check on the pregnant woman. This woman had indeed developed a good habit because of Subai's incident, and she would cut off her head if she killed anyone. "How's it going?" Subai slowly walked down the stairs. "You have the nerve to ask me. You could have chosen a gentler approach just now." Su Qing actually complained about Subai at this time. "You must know that she is an assassin and has definitely killed a lot of people. From the moment she and Subai met for the first time, she lurked directly and skillfully cut Subai's throat. Just know what kind of person she is." Hey, there's something wrong with this style of painting," Subai said, somewhat dumbfounded. "Kill whoever deserves to be killed." Su Qing gritted her teeth, but she could have survived better, and the child in her belly could have survived better. Okay, stop being so lyrical. "Is she dead?" Subai asked. Su Qing took a deep breath. "He's not dead, he just has some bruises on his body." What the heck are you trying to do with me?" Subai cursed directly. Seeing Su Qing's reaction just now, Subai thought he had lost 2 lives and felt a little regretful. Su Qing was checking the body of the pregnant woman when she suddenly raised her head and looked at Subai. "The amniotic water has broken and I'm about to give birth. Now, immediately. A van was running fast. The driver was Subai. Subai's phone was still on the phone and was placed in the passenger seat. At this time, Su Qing's voice came from the phone. "Where are you?" "I don't know. This city is a bit like Harbin, but the road signs and roads are wrong, so I just followed my own habits and drove first, looking for an open place." "You really don't want to go to the hospital or clinic? Do you know how many informants are in hospitals and clinics now?" "I know," Su Qing affirmed, "but what should we do? Are you here to deliver the baby? Don't worry about me for now. How are you doing over there?" "That husband has been knocked unconscious by me. I did as you said to my pregnant wife and didn't move around. I didn't dare to drug her. I just used her husband's cell phone to imitate her husband's voice to trick her out of the hotel and have sex with me. In the car, I put Catwoman's jade pendant on her body. This jade pendant is a kind of nourishment for us, but the effect is greater for ordinary people. She has fallen asleep under the effect of the jade pendant. Am I going to drive to find you? You don't have to come to me anymore. Find another place to settle you and her together. I'll try to solve the problem of the amniotic water breaking here first." "Subai, do you really want to deliver the baby?" Then what else can be done? It's too late. I'll park the car on the elevated road first. You can send me the address after you've settled there. After saying that, Subai got out of the car with the phone, opened the back door of the van, and walked in. Regular uterine contractions, premature rupture of membranes, and outflow of amniotic fluid are signs of imminent delivery. Pregnant women should be asked to take deep breaths in conjunction with uterine contractions, massage the lower abdomen and waist, and compress the pubic symphysis to overcome labor pains. Midwives should carefully protect and comfort the mother to reduce and eliminate her nervousness. Make use of environmental conditions and adjust measures to local conditions to help the mother give birth smoothly. When conditions permit, move the mother to a quiet place sheltered from the wind, pay attention to keep warm, put a piece of clean clothing under the mother's buttocks, and try to disinfect the mother's vulva. Use a clean towel or clothes to protect the vulva, and no uncleanness is allowed. Touching the vulva with your hands or any unclean instrument will contaminate the birth canal. After the baby is delivered, do not rush to cut off the umbilical cord, especially do not use an unclean knife to cut off the umbilical cord. You can temporarily ligate the middle section of the umbilical cord with a thread. Su Qing on the other end of the phone was suddenly stunned. So many very professional words came out of Subai's mouth, which made her feel very unreal. Then she seemed to have guessed something and immediately cursed. Damn it, Subai, you are a doctor in reality, right? You are already very confident about delivering the baby, right? You actually deliberately didn't tell me and let me worry here for nothing. Do you still have any shame? We are a team now. Mom, can you please be quiet? I was just reading something from Baidu on my phone. Su Cheng. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 244. The woman is unconscious now, how should she exert herself? Subai subconsciously looked at his nails. Then, the palm of his right hand began to wither, and 5 fingers grew sharp black nails. This was the manifestation of zombie blood. Isn't it easier to have a cesarean section? Subai said to himself. What, Subai, you want a cesarean section? Su Qing was very surprised. Subai knew that his nails were absolutely sharp, but they contained corpse poison. He could easily cut open the belly of a pregnant woman and take out the baby. There was a certain chance that the baby would survive, but this pregnant woman, even if you don't die from an irregular cesarean section, you will die from corpse poison. But what does a pregnant woman have to do with herself? All he wants is this child, only this child. This child is a ticket to board Noah's Ark. The people in the city are just cat demons and NPCs, not living people. There is no need for me to feel guilty. Moreover, I am not a good person, so where can I feel any guilt? Subai put a hand on his forehead. For some reason, when the pregnant woman was lying in front of him, unconscious, the thought of a child about to be born in her belly filled Subai's mind. I always recall the little one sitting on the couch excited to see that he was home. Silently, a mocking smile appeared on Subai's lips. He had just laughed at Su Qing's new virgin. Why did it become like this when it was his turn? If you kill her, just kill her. Get the child out and get the child. Mission accomplished, that's what matters. Subai, without your child, you will be wiped out. You can't even protect yourself, why are you so pretentious? Subai kept persuading himself in his mind, but the sharp nails would not go down. The pregnant woman might have hurt her head. Even if her water broke and she was about to give birth, she still didn't wake up at all. This almost put an end to Subai's desire to give birth naturally. For example, a pregnant woman is lying there, and Subai is shouting next to her, hard, 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 your head will come out, your arms will come out, try harder. This kind of scene will never happen again. For a person who seems to be in a deep coma, You can't make her take the initiative to exert force now. Subai, we already have a pregnant woman. Su Qing's voice came from the phone. What do you mean? Subai was already sitting in the car seat at this time, looking at the pregnant woman in front of him, with unnatural sweat on his face. Actually, we don't have to do so much. Su Qing actually said this at this time, it's really unnecessary. So, what if the one in your car has a miscarriage? Subai asked. Su Qing was speechless for a moment, but after a while she continued to speak. My English is not as good as yours, but I have read all the stories in the Bible. Let me ask you, what is the significance of the appearance of Noah's Ark? Subai frowned slightly and did not answer. Su Qing continued, because God felt that human beings had become bad and the whole world was becoming dirty and no longer the beautiful world he imagined, so he planned to destroy the world and reshuffle the cards to make the world bright and beautiful again. Stand up. I thought, since the terrorist broadcast included the term Noah's Ark in the mission, does it also imply something? If we take this extreme approach and kill the pregnant woman and bring out the baby, will we encounter any bad luck? Subai looked out the window. Cars on the elevated highway passed by quickly, and the sound of engines roaring and whistling came from his ears again and again. Su Qing, Subai suddenly said. Have you ever had a child? Why do you ask that? Su Qing's voice suddenly changed, with a slight vibrato, and it was obvious that her emotions were fluctuating. I'm just curious. After you saw the pregnant woman, you seemed to be a different person. Don't tell me, you were just showing pure sympathy, or maybe your maternal nature was overflowing. I was pregnant, but due to an accident, I had a miscarriage. Su Qing did not hide it or refuse to answer, but gave her own answer. In the story world, it is better. I don't think too much about things. But in the real world, I often dream about my child at night, and he is crying in my arms, asking why I don't want him. You men can't understand this feeling. It feels a bit mean for the two of us to start benevolence as women together at this time. If we don't have a child in our hands by then, we will die together. Live, not live for the sake of living. I like this sentence very much. Subai took a deep breath, then gritted his teeth, pushed open the door of the van, returned to the cab, and started the car again. Hearing the sound of Subai's car starting, Su Qing was a little surprised. What are you going to do? Send the patient to the hospital. Subai stepped on the accelerator, regardless of whether he was speeding or not. Did you feel that my mind was going crazy just now? Su Qing asked suddenly. It's so pitiful that I was infected by you, Subai joked. After getting off the elevated road, Subai drove on the highway, constantly looking at both sides of the road. Soon, a hospital appeared in Subai's field of vision. He immediately drove in the opposite direction and rushed into the hospital without raising the guardrail. When he got up, he was directly knocked to pieces by Subai. After sending Buddha to the West Bar, Subai drove the car directly to the door of the clinic, startling some patients and medical staff around him. Then Subai took out the car keys and got out of the car, and got into the crowd. Middle. Soon, the hospital security guards came over and found the pregnant woman bleeding in the van. They immediately shouted help. Then, stretcher trucks, doctors, nurses, etc. also rushed over. No matter what, since what happened in the hospital, in public, you can't just ignore someone's death. Subai hid himself in the crowd and watched the pregnant woman being pushed into the building. He did not choose to continue to get closer, nor did he choose to wait and see. He did nothing and just wandered around in the crowd casually. Sure enough, soon, 2 private cars drove into the hospital, and 5 people got off. They rushed directly into the hospital. Immediately afterwards, several more cars parked outside the hospital, some of which seemed to Subai. Men who looked like the child's father hurried to the hospital, and they were obviously the audience who had received the news. The small clinics in the hospital must be full of spies from other teams. Sudbai has known this for a long time, so since he sent the pregnant woman to the hospital, he stopped taking it from the wolves again. Food preparation. Sudbai didn't plan to stay here anymore, but walked out of the hospital directly and prepared to take a taxi. Su Qing's voice came from the phone at this time. Sudbai, I found AB/U0026B to stay in. The environment is relatively comfortable and secluded. I sent you the address via text message. Come over. Well, I have sent the pregnant woman to the hospital. Whether mother and child are safe depends on her fate. Thank you, I owe you a favor. Next time there is a spoils distribution, I will give you my share. Farewell, I'm not worried about scarcity but inequality. I don't want an assassin who I get along with day and night to be dissatisfied and complain about me, otherwise I won't know how I died in the end. Anyway, thanks. It doesn't matter. Sudbai didn't tell Su Qing. In fact, even without her obstruction, he might not have been able to do it himself. Does this count as me accumulating virtue? Where are the pregnant women? Asked a man with a burn scar on his face. In the emergency room, a woman replied. She was wearing nurse's clothes, but she was obviously not a nurse. Her hat was still on, so she had obviously just put on a disguise. Go and set up control. No matter what, don't let others snatch the meat in your mouth, the scar-faced man said to the people around him. Yes. Clear. No. One audience member disguised himself as a nurse and the other as a patient. Monitoring began at the two entrances of this floor. The scar-faced man stood at the door of the emergency room with two other people. Those who didn't know it thought they were pregnant women. Relatives? Captain, there seems to be another group of people at the hospital entrance. The nurse looked at the elevator and corridor, and at the same time looked through the window at the hospital entrance. Sometimes it is easy to tell whether the audience is there, especially the other party. There was not too much cover-up, and it was obvious that he had just received the news and came in a hurry. Everyone, be prepared to fight to hold them back if necessary. The scar-faced man gave orders to his team members through his mobile phone. Suddenly, the emergency room light turned green, apparently the surgery was over. The scar-faced man immediately picked up his phone again. Everyone is gathering in the emergency room. The baby has been born. The audience disguised as nurses and patients quickly came back. A doctor and two nurses walked out of the emergency room first. Looking at the scar-faced man, they were a little surprised that the child's father looked like this, but they still smiled in return. Said, "Mother and son are safe, congratulations, they are a daughter of a daughter." The listener disguised as a patient had no intention of giving any red envelopes. A string of blue electricity emitted from his body. The nurse and doctor fainted and fell to the ground. The entire team of 5 people rushed into the emergency room together. The pregnant woman seemed to be drugged and fell asleep. Next to her, there was a baby. The baby had blood on its face and wrinkled skin, but it was obvious that he was alive. The scar-faced man breathed a long sigh of relief. The child is still alive. Everyone also had smiles on their faces. With the child in hand, everything was settled. However, just when the 5 people gathered around the child's eyes suddenly opened. He opened them widely, like 2 copper bells, and his blue-green eyes were full of ridicule. "Gigi, this way of fishing is my favorite." Buzz. 5 golden threads shot out from the child's navel cord. The 5 listeners standing next to the child were caught off guard and pierced by the golden threads. Then their flesh and blood began to shrink and wither, as if they were providing nutrients to flowers and plants. The vitality was extracted, and the baby continued to grow, with an excited look on his face. When all 5 listeners turned into mummies, the baby also grew into an old man. The old man was naked, looking around with a smile on his face. "Damn it, if I hadn't fought with those people after entering the story world and both sides were injured, I wouldn't have had to work so hard to recover myself. However, the vitality of the audience is really delicious. Haha, you really can't taste this kind of taste in the real world, and you don't dare to taste it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 245. Subai had been standing on the side of the road in front of the hospital for more than 10 minutes, but still couldn't get a taxi. If it weren't for fear of attracting attention, Subai would have just grabbed a car and left. Subai now has another advantage, that is, most of the team has never seen him, because during Side Task 1, it is supposed to be the time when everyone gathers together to compete for side tasks and get rewards, just like in a ring. Subai the previous team and Pu Yaoyao's team fought in another place, so Subai and Su Qing, the two survivors, missed the most perfect stage to show themselves. This can be regarded as an advantage, especially when there are only two people in your team. You should cherish this advantage. Finally, the taxi came. Subai sat in the back and reported the address Su Qing texted to him to the taxi driver. As soon as he finished speaking, the car door was opened from the outside and an old man sat tremblingly. "Come in." "Hey," Subai shouted, which meant that someone was already here. However, the old man still went his own way and got in. The taxi driver asked the old man where he was going. The old man touched his forehead and said a place name. The taxi driver calculated it in his mind and said, "You two are very close to each other, just 1 block apart. Let's do it this way. It's 50 yuan per person. No need to use the meter." Subai was helpless and could only lament in his heart that horror broadcasting mastered the details so well when creating the story world. These days, as online ride-hailing continues to develop and gain legal recognition from the country, it is almost the share that originally belonged to taxis has been reduced to a very low position. Many taxi drivers have simply given up their jobs. Taxi companies can't recruit people and even skip the assessment. They just get on the bus and start working. Because of this, the quality of taxi drivers in many cities in China is deteriorating at this stage, forming a vicious cycle. The taxi started to drive, and the old man kept coughing, as if he was sick. Subai rolled down the car window to let in the wind, trying to keep himself as far away from the old man as possible, showing a very disgusting attitude. The old man looked at Subai in confusion. "Young man, do you have any tissues?" "No," Subai refused. "Ahem." The old man turned around and coughed by himself. The taxi driver was really afraid that the old man would dirty his car, so he subconsciously speeded up. The first one to arrive was Subai. Subai gave the money and got out of the car, and then the taxi continued to drive forward. Subai picked up the phone. For some reason, the call between him and Su Qing in the taxi was suddenly cut off. At this time, he called back. After waiting for a few seconds, Su Qing quickly answered the phone. "Hey, why did you hang up the phone just now? Stop asking, just listen to me." Before Subai finished speaking, an old face suddenly appeared next to Subai's shoulder. "What did you say?" The old man's voice was full of teasing and ridicule. However, soon, the old man stopped laughing, because he found that Subai was also laughing harder than him. "Speak of you, male gobe." Boom. Subai was holding a cell phone in one hand while making a call, and the other hand was actually in his windbreaker. He was already holding a Hellfire shotgun, and the muzzle of the gun was pointed behind him. The reason why he was standing on the roadside was the purpose of making phone calls is to give the other party a feeling that he is careless and careless. The game of cat and mouse is nothing more than playing this routine over and over again, but Subai plays it more sophisticatedly. The Hellfire shotgun was fired at close range, and the old man was immediately thrown backwards and landed more than 10 meters away. His chest was sunken, but he still maintained a stable standing posture. Subai turned around, a little surprised. This old man was really resolute. He was still standing after being shot hard. He seemed to be very energetic. Subai shook his head and finally kicked the iron down this time. Got it? The old man looked at the hole in his chest, and then at the muzzle of the gun Subai pulled out of his windbreaker. He was a little surprised and a little excited. Then he raised his head and pointed at Subai and laughed. Okay, young man, you can do this trick. I was really fooled by you. It's really a pity that you don't go to the filming. The old man didn't cough at all at this time and spoke very fluently. Subai raised his guns and pointed them at the old man. He said nothing and did not want to speak. I heard you talking before. There is a pregnant woman there. I'm sorry, old man, I made a reservation. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man disappeared from the spot and appeared directly in front of Subai. Subai subconsciously pulled the trigger, but the old man pushed up with both palms, and Subai raised the muzzle of the gun and fired 2 shots into the air. And then the old man kicked Subai in the abdomen. Subai was kicked out, just like the old man was blown away by a gun before. Subai kept rubbing his feet against the ground, and finally stood up, but he couldn't straighten his back for a while. The gun is good, but you haven't integrated it into your body yet. That's right. The weapons redeemed from the WeChat store are indeed more difficult to fuse. Moreover, you are too dependent on foreign objects. The old man loosened his waist and put one hand on his wound to caress it. Soon, the wound began to recover. This is not the recovery ability of a vampire, nor the recovery ability of a special bloodline, but the magic that naturally manifests itself after the life level is raised to a certain level. This old man can control the division of cells in his body and has reached such a level. Down to the smallest detail. As soon as Subai stood up straight, the old man disappeared on the spot again. Subai subconsciously took a step back, but soon, the old man's hand appeared directly at his side, clasped his neck, and pulled his whole body. He lifted it up and then swung it hard. Subai's whole body was like a cannonball and it smashed into a convenience store on the side of the road. The Hellfire shotgun is still tightly held in Subai's hand, but facing an opponent of this level, the Hellfire shotgun is of no use at all. The opponent's speed and reaction ability are completely crushed. He couldn't hit him at all, and even if he did, the damage to him seemed to be much lighter than Subai knew. Getting up again with difficulty, Subai saw a pair of feet wearing disposable slippers appearing in front of him. Then, his vision went dark, and the old man kicked Subai in the face. Subai was knocked unconscious. Then the old man kicked Subai's ankle again as if playing a game, causing Subai, who had just gotten up, to fall heavily to the ground again. You're still holding onto your gun like this. Tisk, 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 this obsession is really heavy. The old man squatted down, pinched Subai's wrist with one hand, forced Subai to let go of the gun, and then kicked. He swept over, kicked the gun into the corner, and then followed suit, and the 2 Hellfire shotguns were ripped away from Subai's hands. The old man's hand gently patted Subai's face. Hey, don't pretend to be dead. Didn't you just hold your breath and prepare to attack me? Subai turned his head slightly and looked at the old man. His face began to become ferocious, the zombie bloodline switched. Oh, there are quite a few things at the bottom of the box. The old man once again grabbed Subai's neck with one hand and lifted Subai up. Even though Subai had switched to zombie blood, he still had little ability to resist in the old man's hands. With such a good bloodline, if you don't use it properly, what are you doing with 2 broken guns all day long? You picked up sesame seeds and lost the watermelon. The old man shook his head with hesitation, then swung Subai to the convenience store walls. However, just as the old man exerted his strength, Subai's whole body turned into a shadow, and the old man's hand suddenly became empty. Then, Subai fell behind the old man, and the set of accessories from the frozen man was completely stimulated at this time. Come out, the cold poison breaks out. Boom. The temperature in the convenience store dropped rapidly, and layers of frost suddenly appeared. The old man was also frozen inside, motionless. Subai staggered out, picked up the Hellfire shotgun, looked at the old man who had turned into an ice sculpture, thought about it, and finally gave up the urge to try again with the Hellfire shotgun, and instead directly turn around and leave. After Subai walked away, the ice on the old man's body began to crack. Then, the old man walked out. He rubbed his hands. It seemed a little cold. Of course, it was just a little cold. At the door of the convenience store, someone pushed the door open. It was a man wearing a navy blue coat. There was a touch of femininity on the man's face. At the man's feet, there was a little pixie squatting there, staring at him angrily. Looking at the old man. "Is that guy your relative?" the man asked, a little surprised. "Not only did you deliberately open up the stagnant aura in his body, but you also gave him some advice. Wow, that really makes me jealous. If I had such a level at that time, if a strong person comes to enlighten me, I will be moved to tears. Pelu, you should know a little bit about me." The old man looked at the man in front of him with serious eyes. Obviously, he could laugh and joke with Subai before because the two parties were not on the same level of strength, but the man in front of him was the one who teamed up with another woman to severely injure him not long ago. He had to find a female corpse and lurk in her belly to pretend to be a child, looking for opportunities to fish and suck the vitality of the audience back to life. "You are an orphan." Pilalo smiled slightly. "Have you not had enough life yet? You look so old. It doesn't look like you are always meticulously dressed. If I continue to absorb the vitality of low-level listeners, it is estimated that the horror broadcast will really take action against me. If it is too much, it is not enough. The current state is enough. Come on." Lan Lin said that she is not going to find a baby to ride on Noah's Ark. She plans to experience the feeling of God destroying the world. "You look like you can't afford it?" "Not necessarily, haha. This main mission didn't say that if you can't get the baby, you will be wiped out. It's just that you can't get on Noah's Ark. I actually also experienced the feeling of annihilation. This is of great benefit to us. You have this kind of temper. If you had known now, why would you have fought with Lan Lin about that little kitten demon in the first place? I never thought that a sissy like you could help women grab things," the old man scolded angrily. "Come on, it's good that you're not dead. By the way, you just didn't finish what you said. How is that guy worthy of your high regard?" The old man turned around and was about to leave. When he heard these words, he was stunned and said slowly, "When my mother gave birth to me, she shouted on the roadside for a long time. No car was willing to take her to the hospital, so she gave birth to me on the roadside, and then she got infected. She died soon after I was born. I have been thinking that if I really met a kind driver that day, I would have lost my mother as soon as I was born." Piaolu nodded, with a sincere expression on his face, and put a hand on his chest. "I'm sorry." Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 246. Subai searched all the way according to the previous address and finally found the B/U0026B. At the door, Subai stopped. He didn't think that Su Qing would be stupid enough to stay with the pregnant woman in the B/U0026B after the phone call he made. "Wait for yourself." Sure enough, Su Qing, who seemed to be hiding in the dark, discovered Subai. Her figure walked out from the shadow of the big tree across the street. "Where are the pregnant women?" Subai asked. "I couldn't move her out of the basement in such a short period of time." Subai nodded. She understood what Su Qing meant. Since there was no time to transfer, She simply hid the pregnant woman and waited for the opportunity. This was also a very rational approach, and it was more rational than persuading Subai not to have a cesarean section before. Much wiser. This is probably the reason why everyone has weaknesses. Subai is also the same. Regarding certain things and aspects, he will always show a mentality and style that is very different from usual. Su Qing looked at Subai, meaning to ask if Subai still needed to be transferred. She had heard the gunshot immediately after Subai talked to her on the phone. It was obvious that Subai's condition was very critical at that time. Unexpectedly, Subai simply waved his hand, indicating that it was no longer necessary. Su Qing frowned, walked over and opened the door, letting Subai go in. Subai found the bathroom, went straight in and started taking a shower. Su Qing waited outside for a while, and saw that Subai was really taking a shower, so she stopped. Thinking more, the trouble must have been solved by Subai. She took the pregnant woman who was still sleeping sweetly from the basement and placed her on the bed in the bedroom. The hot water kept washing his body. Subai was surprised that he didn't have any bruises on his body. In fact, when he walked back, Subai had already come to his senses. He was continuously beaten by the old man. It was a heavy blow. I felt dazed and in pain at the time, but when I walked back, I found that my whole body was much lighter. It was as if my whole body had been drugged. This feeling was very strange. Even though I had just been beaten up, I felt so comfortable. Suddenly, Subai thought of Ying. That woman seemed to be an expert in this field, but the old man seemed to be more unique. Subai remembered what the old man said in his mind, which meant that he heard the phone call in the car. You have a pregnant woman in the car? I was alone in the van with a pregnant woman. Where was the old man hiding? Why didn't he just go and snatch the pregnant woman he sent to the hospital? Subai felt that with the old man's strength, the two groups of listeners in the hospital who planned to snatch the child together were probably no match for the old man. In his eyes, he was completely crushed by those two groups. It is estimated to be similar. A possibility appeared in Subai's mind, making Subai feel a chill on his back. He placed one hand gently on the tiles in the bathroom, feeling the fleeting coldness. What the hum? Subai cursed. He didn't know who he was scolding. He was scolding that old man? Scold yourself? Or scold this horror broadcast? After he finished scolding, he pulled off a bath towel and wiped his body. When he walked out, Subai realized that he didn't even have a change of clothes. However, to Su Qing's surprise, a set of clothes had already appeared outside the bathroom door. He had come in before. It wasn't there yet, and it was obviously prepared by Su Qing, a set of men's casual clothes, but without underwear. After getting dressed and walking out, Su Qing was sitting on the sofa eating an apple. When she saw Subai walking out wearing clothes, she smiled slightly. The clothes I chose from the house next door are not bad, are they? You should steal some underwear for me. I searched, but couldn't find any unopened underwear. I don't think it's suitable to give it to you if someone else has worn it. I'm interested. Subai also sat on the sofa, picked up an apple and a fruit knife and started peeling it. Directly opposite the living room is the bedroom. The door of the bedroom is open, and the pregnant woman is sleeping soundly on the bed. She sleeps very sweetly. I have to say that the effect of the Catwoman jade pendant is indeed very good. No wonder Fen Yelong at the beginning and Su Qing later liked it. Soft spot. Peel the apple when you eat it, Su Qing glanced at Subai and said. Subai smiled, pulled off a piece of apple peel, and handed the apple to Su Qing. Please have one. Thank you for helping me find clothes. Okay. Su Qing was not polite and took the apple. Immediately, Subai stood up and stretched. What should we do with this pregnant woman? We can't prepare a good job and send her to the hospital when she is about to give birth. If we continue like this, We will really be dead. The family next door is a doctor and the hostess is a nurse. The city's calendar shows that these days are National Day holidays. They should be at home these days. I will always pay attention to their activities. If they go out, I will follow them. When this pregnant woman is about to give birth, just let the doctor and nurse couple deliver the baby. No matter what, they are always much more experienced than us. Su Qing shook the apple in her hand and added, at least more experienced than us. Someone's Beidou is reliable. Stop it, why do you feel like I have to kill you in this story world, so that you can make it into a joke and spread it after you get out alive? Su Qing hooked her fingers at Subai, come on, come and kill me. Subai looked at Su Qing's body very seriously, and then said, I don't really like women with extremely good figures. They don't have much flesh on their bodies and they feel numb to the touch. Ba Su Qing spat at Subai. What's for dinner? Since there is fruit in the B/U0026B, there should be something to eat. Order takeout. I'm too lazy and don't have the time to do it, Su Qing suggested. Subai nodded, then walked to the door and opened it. I'll sit in the yard for a while. To think about life. Almost. There was a wicker chair in the yard. Subai sat on it. The afternoon sun shone on him. It was really enjoyable to bask in the warm sunshine after taking a bath. Moreover, you must know that this is still a story world. Being able to take a break from your busy schedule in the story world is as natural as swimming in the desert, which is particularly precious and pleasant. Subai opened his eyes slightly, and kept recalling the scene of the previous battle with the old man in his mind. Did he fuse the Hellfire shotgun into his body? Subai remembered that Fatty once said that integrating a magic weapon into one's body was regarded as the dividing line between the audience's strength, but Subai didn't see Fatty integrating anything into his body, or was Fatty always hiding something? It shouldn't be. Subai remembered that the fat man was nailed to the rock wall on that Taoist mountain. It was impossible that he was hiding his clumsiness at that time. Moreover, the monk and Gyatso did not behave in this regard, because is it the reason why everyone's strength is still not up to standard? The black man had integrated the compass into his body, but it was a pity that the black man was knocked down and killed by the Frankenstein monster before he could show his true strength in front of Subai. With his hands crossed, Subai was thinking about what the old man said about relying too much on external objects, picking up sesame seeds and losing watermelons. This old man is really interesting. If you think about his previous experiences carefully, it's really a bit like a martial arts novel. The protagonist enters some cave and encounters an old monster who gives him a hint. However, this opportunity came a bit out of nowhere. Subai has always believed that there is no love or hate for no reason in this world. Pie in the sky things may happen, but the result is to smash that person to death. At this moment, an Audi drove past on the road in front of the yard. Coincidentally, Subai actually knew the driver. It's Sun Hayaran. After Sun Hayaran drove over, he reversed back and confirmed that the person lying in the yard behind the fence on the side of the road was Subai. There was an unexpected smile on his face. The distance between the two people was actually not that far, only 5 or 6 meters. Look like. What a coincidence, Sun Hayaran said. A little bit, indeed. Have you found the pregnant woman? Sun Hayaran asked. No, but there is news. Haha, we found it too, and she is a pregnant woman. Later, 2 more masters were added to the team, and they were also lucky. Sun Hayaran threw a cigarette to Subai from the car window, and Subai caught it. I waved my hand to express my gratitude to him. Okay, anyway, thank you for helping us survive last time by talking to us. Please contact us more and take care of us more. It's natural. Well, I just bought some equipment. I don't dare to go to the hospital, so I have to prepare for the delivery myself. Be careful. Okay, by the way, now that I've seen you, you'd better move to another room. It's not safe here. I know. Sun Haerin drove away. Subai stood up and returned to his room. Suqing was lying on the sofa and had not finished eating an apple. She was a little surprised and said, "You are thinking about the end of life so soon." "Did you see the camera on the road outside?" Subai asked. Of course, Suqing replied. "We seem to have forgotten a very important issue, or it was our own negligence. We thought that by avoiding hospitals and clinics and some audiences, we could hide safely. It seems to be too naive now. This is a modern city. If there is a listener who is proficient in computers or even enhanced, his eyes and ears will be everywhere in the city." "You mean, we were discovered?" "Just now, an audience member I have contacted in the story world drove by on the road in front of our yard, and then stopped to say hello to me. Maybe it was a chance encounter." "No, this car was driving at 60 yards before. It passed 10 meters in front of our house and started to slow down to 30 yards. Then it pretended to drive in front of me and then backed up and pretended to meet me by chance. He had discovered us a long time ago. So I came here deliberately to explore the way." "What was your previous relationship with him?" Suqing started to get up, pack her equipment, and get ready. "They can be considered teammates. I also spoke for them and saved them," Subai replied honestly. Pu Yaoyao originally planned to kill Sun Haerin directly, but Subai interceded and let them live. After all, Sun Haerin and the others also helped Subai in the first place. It is better to repay this favor if possible. "Then why do you have so little confidence in him?" Suqing said with a playful look. "Maybe someone will deliberately let us go in order to repay your kindness. This is the world of stories. The role of friends and benefactors is to stab someone in the back." Subai walked to the window and gently opened the curtains. Outside, there were already several figures lurking over. "What should pregnant women do?" Suqing asked. "Pregnant women are not the ones we want to protect, but they are also the ones they want to protect. Therefore, she is not a burden to us, nor a burden to us. Just treat her as if she does not exist." Subai reached out and subconsciously wanted to pull out the gun, but his hands trembled slightly and he gave up. If he needed to use hellfire shotguns to deal with Sun Haerin and his gang, then he would indeed be useless except for these guns. "Maybe, should I really follow the old man's words and focus more on exploring and expanding my own bloodline?" Suqing straightened her hair in front of the living room glass, and said while doing it, "Still the old rules. Do you go to the front or to the back?" Subai watched Suqing bow her head and shine on the glass surface of the coffee table. "I like going in from the back."